Yesterday, news broke that there was an apparent threat potentially to the life of Vice President Kamala Harris outside of her official residence. Now, she has not actually moved in there because repairs are being done, but in theory, you might have seen the news that a man from Texas was arrested outside of the official residence. This is yesterday, and he's now facing weapons and ammunition charges. And I wanted to give a little bit of time so we could find out a little bit more about that. We didn't talk about it live on the Young Turks yesterday, but now we know a bit more. So DC police say officers arrested and charged 31-year-old Paul Murray of San Antonio, and that a rifle and ammunition were recovered from his vehicle. A police report obtained by CNN shows officers alleged that he was in possession of an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. Totally coincidence. They always have those. 113 rounds of unregistered ammunition and 5 30-round magazines, which you clearly have for hunting deer and self-defense. A US Army spokesman confirmed to CNBC today that Murray served as an unmanned drone pilot from March of 2010 to April 2014. He held the rank of specialist and had no deployments, according to the Army. He'd apparently recently purchased the AR-15, and his mother received a text from home this morning stating he was in DC and was gonna take care of his problem. He had some paranoid delusions about the military and the government. So look, again, there's still a lot of information that we need to have, and we don't wanna jump to any conclusions, but the fact that he was outside of that official residence, Yasmin, seems concerning considering how much political violence there has been recently, how much sort of cover for political violence there's been from right-wing media.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about fear driving people so much, and that fear leads to anger because they feel victimized, they feel like they've been villainized, whether or not they believe that they should have been, and then they always have a target, right? So in this case, for whatever reason, this guy's target was Kamala Harris. That was a person that he chose to blame for whatever issues he's having, and Kamala Harris is not above criticism, but she's really not the worst human being in government. Like, say what you will about her. There's a lot that can be said about her, but she's not like the one that you need to be going after if you're upset. And he's also 31 years old. So I am curious as a millennial what he thinks his major problems are and why he thinks Kamala Harris is the one perpetuating them. Mm-hmm. On top of that, the access is very scary. It also calls into question, well, he was never deployed, but it calls into question the training that these guys get when they go to the military and what happens to them when they come out of it. So there's a lot going on with this guy. And then the fact that he left San Antonio, which is a pretty liberal city, and then went to go find Kamala Harris is also kind of strange. People don't realize that Texas has liberal cities. So I feel like I'm always like trying to remind people that there are a lot of liberals and progressives in Texas.
There are. Oh, I lived in Austin for a number of years. I get it.
Yeah.
But that is a good point. Yes, although I mean, in theory, you could have come from another part. Anyway, that's beside the point. It's obviously complex. We don't know. Maybe when they talk to him, maybe there will be writing or a manifesto. I don't know. Thankfully, she's perfectly fine. But this does raise concerns that have been very elevated for a couple of months now. That just because Biden and Kamala Harris got in, against both the opposition of elected Republicans as well as their violent mobs, the sort of paramilitary wing of the Republican Party, that doesn't mean that like all of those people that would have been perfectly happy to string up Biden and Mike Pence on that day afterward were like, oh, well, guess we're back to the normal, like push and pull of American politics. No violence for me anymore. That's probably not actually how it's going to go. Those people are still out there. And thankfully, there are warnings from inside of the government about it. A new report from the US intelligence community warns of future unspecified violence committed by domestic extremists who've been emboldened by the siege on the US Capitol and conspiracy theories about the 2020 election and coronavirus pandemic. Biden commissioned a threat assessment shortly after taking office. And so, look, we've talked about this sort of thing before, and whenever an assessment like that comes out of the intelligence community, I understand if some people, naturally think, well, the intelligence community has been really opportunistic about the sort of threats that they've talked about in the past. That is certainly true, and they could be wrong. But this is hardly news to us. I mean, the siege of the Capitol just happened a couple of months ago. How many different plots from more recently people who support QAnon, militia members, white supremacists have been foiled by the FBI over the past few years with people dreaming of starting race wars or overthrowing the government. So you don't necessarily need to trust the US intelligence community to understand that this is a threat, that those people are still out there, and that they have not suddenly come to the realization that the election was legitimate and Biden and Harris deserve to be in office.
Yeah, I think this just harkens back to 2016, whenever Donald Trump was elected president, and so many minorities in this country were terrified, like legitimately terrified. White supremacists in America are, the largest threat, as determined by our own intelligence committees. And it kind of reminds me, I don't want to misquote him, but a tweet that Fred T. Joseph put out, and he was saying, if Black Americans were really as violent and angry and dangerous as they seem to think we are, I mean, everybody would be in a lot of trouble. And it reminded me of back in 2001, after September 11th, when Muslims were being very, very heavily criticized and villainized in the United States. People were like, oh, they're going to come over here. They're going to, try to get Sharia law invoked in the United States. And I'm not going to, and I was thinking, and I was, not even 13 at the time, right? I think it was just like a month before my 13th birthday. And I was like, do they not know that there's already millions of Muslims here? And if like Muslims are trying to take over this country, probably would have happened by now, if they were as organized as these, international terrorists, you know what I mean? Like it's not the case, the things that you're afraid of are not worth fearing, Yeah. Meanwhile, the things that you're saying are safe, the things that you're saying, oh, this is the person who had a bad day or whatever, they're the ones that you need to actually be afraid of, but the news won't cover it that way. And so they keep getting off and they keep seeing that they're getting off, right? So with the insurrection, everything that happened, all that the congressional response to that told them is that we can do this again, nothing will happen. And we've seen this over time, and it's gotten so bad that they went to the Capitol and again, nothing happened.
Yeah. And there's always these blinders too when talking about that. Like they will, occasionally freak out about Sharia law. They're very specific about Sharia law because it's not religious law in general that they're against. I mean, yesterday while the Equal Rights Amendment was being debated on the floor, Marjorie Greene was ranting about how this is like a violation of God's creation and all of that. Yeah. They would be perfectly happy to have some form of religious law put into effect. And it probably would actually in practice have quite a bit of overlap with Sharia law, but the implications make them uncomfortable. So yeah, they're always very specific in that case.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.